And so come all the way back to the top of our conversation, even with this. Did you ride a bike here?
No. Nope.
You riding bikes out here?
Well, no. So
that's the real deal.
At this point, it's more of a knick-knacky decoration. But so that is indeed my bike. It's like many people purchased puppies during the pandemic. Adriana and I purchased bikes.
Yeah.
I have ridden that bike with distance approximately 3.5 times since owning it.
10 miles plus?
One trip we did the rail trail in the Cape with friends who are bike people.
So they was
absolutely hated riding bikes with Adriana and I, because like I didn't know the gears. I was tired. My butt hurt. I had to change the seat.
You gotta get a better seat. Yeah.
So cool looking bike, right?
It is,
very like brandy new looking.
Fresh.
Because it's
I thought you was on the mountain trail just earlier.
We had a staff person who sadly got hit by a car on her bike. She was fine.
Wow.
But her bike was ruined, and so I brought it in for her to use.
Yeah.
And it turned out she ended up not needing to use it, which ended up also turning out fine because I think when I had put it in the back of my truck, I had left it there overnight and it was cold. And I think the tires, so both tires are deflated. You can't tell from here, but when you get on the bike, they're deflated. And I have a pump, but it doesn't really work.
Okay.
So yeah, it's an ornament now in the office. Yeah. The only, I go down to the Job and Education Center all the time and that bike is there. And at that point, it's just like taking up space. And so it was a Friday afternoon. It was quiet. And I thought it would be funny if I got on the bike to like ride around the office.
Of course. Yeah.
Like
I would have did it.
And then, but the tires were flat. I could have done it, but I think I would have ruined the rim. Not that it matters
because you don't use it often.
We have 2 bikes. So Adriana's bike and then my bike.
So do you have the bike rack and everything?
Oh my God. We went full all out on all the accoutrements. We've got the helmets. We got stickers for our helmets. We went out.
You were locked in that moment.
And then we went on the rail trail and I was like, never again.
that not having the right seat is real. Like,
yeah, that is the improved cushiony seat.
The stock seats. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's an inspiration.
Man, your cheeks be sore, man.
Yeah.
Rate, man.
Yeah.
You didn't even know your cheeks could get that sore. I didn't know.
Yeah. No, they're not. I don't,
Then you try to stand up, but you got to squeeze on that. So.
Yeah. I guess it's not people who are like into biking, I guess you just get used to it. But
there's different exercises too to strengthen the glutes and all that. Yeah.
Anyway, this is a good reminder for me to just get my stuff together.
What's the other? Oh, that's Mario's bag for lights, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you had maybe a rifle.
At some point, I'm just going to start putting coats on my bike. Like the treadmill I used to have at my house.
It's like my ironing board in my room.
I don't even know what that bar is across. I think that it is a bike lock on it, but I just honestly can't remember what that black bar is on top. I think it's to lock your bike in.
I don't know. You know what I always wondered, honestly, because my head wonders those things, is why did the quote unquote female bikes have the recessed bar?
Right.
When the men have the straight across
From
bar.
an anatomy point of view?
Why wouldn't we be set up with that one?
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting thing to look up.
You know what I mean? Like, what we doing?
We'll look that up.
Probably has to do with stability. I don't know.
Well, why are the bikes different regardless?
Valid point.
Right?
Valid point.
Why are they different? Well, I suppose I'm going to take a guess.
Center of gravity?
No, I'm going to take a guess and let's verify this guess later. But I am going to say that there's the recessed bar, as you describe it, because similar to like horseback riding way back in the day, women had to ride side saddle in terms of how they got on the horse.
That mean? Maybe I don't know what side saddle is.
Like you don't drape your legs over either side. You ride with both your legs draped over one side.
Over one side.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Because it was more ladylike. I'm sure there's more history to that.
Understood.
But maybe that has to do with how women
dresses
get on the bike.
Women had to wear dresses. You couldn't have.
I don't know if that's true.
Right? Like most of the back in the day.
We're going to fact check that. And
that makes sense.
At this point, Mario's like, can we get going?
Yeah.
Well, here we are back one-on-one.
My hip-hop name when I was younger that I tried to put in place was the aggressive pedestrian.
The aggressive pedestrian. Were you trying to get some kind of it's not alliteration, but some kind of.
So we call that internal rhyme in the biz.
Okay.
Aggressive pedest.
Yes, I'm calling Eminem at one point.
Yeah. Internal rhyme.
Yes, yeah.
But it also just was dope because I am like, I'm a jaywalker, always pushing convention.
Are you rapping now?
No, that was the phrase that came behind it. Like, it's your man, the aggressive pedestrian, stay pushing boundaries, walking outside the lines.
Do you have any recordings of this?
Of me doing that guy?
Yeah. Do you have any mixtapes?
No, but if you look on Apple and you go to the Keeping It 100 podcast, I introduce myself every time on that podcast as the aggressive pedestrian. That's live streaming on all the...
Well, maybe that came to bite you in the butt a little bit. Karma.
Hey, I got vandalized.
Are you setting us up for a joke?
I'm not. I'm not. Scratched into the side of my car.
Oh, no.
Right now, after being parked outside, it says very eloquently, F y'all.
Oh, no.
Yeah, someone took the time to key in the phrase F y'all.
Did it happen when you were parked at work or home?
At home.
Do you suspect it's someone that knows who Legendary is?
So I think it's someone who knew us or someone was mad that I was in a parking spot.
Oh, it could go either way in Worcester.
I don't know.
Yeah, or both.
Because I have a parking spot in a lot, but the street parking is closer. So sometimes when I have like groceries or whatever, like I'll park on the street there. And I mean, it's not assigned, but maybe someone was like, or maybe someone didn't like us. I don't know.
Do you think it was?
Right.
I was going to say the same thing. Do you think it was?
It was the next day after I had that accident. No, I'm just kidding.
Segue, non sequitur.
Always.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that we captured, but
that was a lot. I think with editing might be required. But I am so happy that we're back in our little 101 fireside chats.
New year.
Yes, Ron Waddell, co-host of The Ripple Effect.
Yes.
And Marybeth Campbell,
Welcome
other
back,
co-hosts of The Ripple Effect. And, I was thinking about the timeline of when we release all of our episodes and the cadence of that. And, we're going from summer to now it's 2024.
That's right.
January 2024. And we've had some really exciting guests in 2023.
Do you have a favorite guest so far?
Oh, we can't do that.
Why not?
Oh my gosh. No, I think, all the conversations, it's been really cool. We had Pete Dunn from Greater Worcester Community Foundation.
Who made the best face out of everybody. I took a screenshot of that. I'm going to put that up more. I'm going to send it to you, man. His face.
We put him in he's new, right? He's new to the community, new to the role. So he, I think he's shared some really great insight and perspective, but probably was a little bit like, I'm not going to go there with you guys.
Because we're also board members.
Oh, yeah, so, that part too.
That part too, he was like, I'm starting to learn a little bit more about.
And then Eric Esteves, who's with Boston Main Streets, and he's new in that role, but
really
he's
good, really
Boston
good show.
Pops.
Yeah.
He has such a great broad set of experiences and perspectives, and he's just the chillest person.
There's no question.
Yeah, and just very. I
feel like if I hit Eric on a bike, like he would just be like, "Nah, don't worry about it, man. It's all good."
Oh, maybe. I don't know. He would definitely have a thought about that, probably. He actually, just this week he wrote some of his thoughts in response to.
Oh, I did see that.
The exit and circumstances around the exit of Caroline Gay, the Harvard president. I thought his piece on that was really poignant and important because there's so many components to it, but he was very concise in his insights.
Universities are nonprofits.
Yeah, they are.
For another time.
Yeah, there's always conversation in Worcester too about, because there's this idea of payment in lieu of taxes, pilots.
So for folks that might not know what Marybeth's talking about, right? As a nonprofit, you don't have to pay taxes, including property tax. Yeah. Right. So
we do pay in terms of payroll tax. We do pay that.
Payroll tax, excuse me, but like property tax is not a thing. And so when you have multiple buildings, a lot of times large nonprofit entities like universities, hospitals will pay something called a pilot payment in lieu of taxes to kind of offset their.
Yeah. So. Yeah. In higher ed institutions, really in a tense focus of, in some ways, third rail conversations too, but a lot of interesting. But yeah, Eric's piece. Eric was an awesome guest, and
Leila Saad from Common Impact.
Yeah, she was super cool. And our we're moving into multi-coast connections on our podcast at that point.
Marrio set us up for the big time, man. He took us to the world.
That was an interesting conversation, I think, because it's, and I've said this before, even in our work as an anti-poverty agency, like these ideas of like we're kind of these aftermarket solutions, and we had just watched the film Uncharitable, so there was a lot of deep connection there around, the motivation of the work that Leila does, and connecting employee expertise through volunteerism. But really that question of like, well, why can't we as nonprofits be able to actually create those positions for even greater impact? That's kind of the uncharitable message also. So that was really timely. And then we moved to Janae and M, who were super cool.
Yeah, so you said super cool. So out of everyone, you didn't say super cool. So I'm assuming they like your favorite guest?
Oh, no, every conversation was so different, but so threaded. They were cool because they were just like, we're going to tell you like it is.
Yeah.
Em especially was just like, and even though I referred to her as a diplomat, but they kind of dove in. It was like, no, like you have the power and agility to like control and adapt the way you want to, and that their existence is, in support of that. So I thought that was really, really cool conversation.
That was a super cool conversation to bring up that and how they were using data. I just think like their niche, like what they're doing and where they're at, our podcast, talking about innovative solutions to troubling situations around nonprofit work. Like part of bringing them on was I also wanted to expose their brand to other maybe nonprofits to be like, hey, there's an entity out there that can help with this. What's interesting, and then what's cool about them is they'll help you kind of figure out how to write them into some of your grants and things like that. Yeah,
that's what I like, the facility of that, and that, we all work with consultants or have had experience over, I feel like decades at this point. I work with consultants, and sometimes consultancy has a very like cookie cutter, just out of the box kind of very tool oriented. Like we'll make whatever you want happen, but it's kind of within this tool, and it can be a little constricting. And that's what I thought was unique about collective Common Impact.
Yeah,
is that they were like, yes, and
Common Impact or Capacity Collective.
Sorry, Capacity Collective.
That's Common Impact, Leila.
Yes,
Capacity Collective.
Yes,
no, a lot of C's.
Yeah, a lot of C's. I struggle with that in my brain, how my brain computes that. But yeah, Capacity Collective, and that was kind of what Em and Janae were both saying is like, you might be forced to ask this question. Go ahead and ask it in the survey, and also ask the question you really want to ask so that you can create that conversation, And I liked that they, have the fortitude and bravery to be able to put themselves out there with their clients and say like, hey, like we are here to help you. And we feel your tension of like the box that you're in, Right. So I just thought that was, I can't say favorite.
That was just cool.
Because when you think about data, I think the other thing too is when you think about data, everyone's like, oh, there's like that collective side.
Yeah, for sure.
And like, I don't know. And we have to wrap but that's not, we didn't have that kind of conversation.
Oh.
It was very, not
it was
just
lively.
It was philosophical, but also practiced.
It's like, look, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and for me, just thinking back, was Eric saying that you have, especially like board members who come from the for-profit sector, trying to use for-profit strategies to solve nonprofit,
right. Yeah,
or create nonprofit solutions. Can sometimes, I thought that was a profound,
well, that
observation
too, I think because we've said many times so far on the show that we are also a business,
Yeah.
But we're constrained because of what we're perceived to be allowed to use funding for, right? So the idea of just overlaying for-profit strategies onto nonprofit, even though we're trying to make the case like we are businesses too, that we are constrained because of the judgment that's overlaid on how we do what we spend money on.
For sure.
So it's a funny, interesting conundrum to think about.
One of the things like real practical that we were just talking about in our office, this was landed, was like, the work that we do at Legendary and even here with y'all is a result of the system failing certain people.
Yeah.
And so we fill a gap.
Aftermarket solutions, yeah.
Right? And then get penalized for trying to help fix some of the problem, get restricted in ways while we're trying to help fix some of the problems.
Experiencing that now in another contract.
Listen.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the other thing people don't know. So remember I came on, what episode was that? When I did the water fast. Remember I came in, I was on my water.
I think we started with Leila. And then it continued into the Janae M conversation.
Yeah, so I've been on that heavy, guys. Like I'm almost all
no
plant-based.
more steak offs, apparently.
Nah, that steak off is done, but we got that for y'all. Make sure y'all see that.
Thank God we had the steak off.
I know.
Because
I don't eat that anymore. You're
not just the aggressive pedestrian. You are the lean machine now.
Oh. You know what was interesting though, seriously, was like really cool. Is like it was a weird compliment to get, like in my weight loss. Someone was like, at church, I was done preaching. They were like, "No, man, I could tell because like I saw some muscles in your neck that I never saw before." Thanks, brother.
I look forward to the day where I have just one neck or one chin, I should say.
I was like, appreciate that. You can really,
the passive micro comments like that are motivators.
The reason I brought it up though, like not just like jumping out of nowhere, was part of what even got me on that was the same thing we were talking earlier before we came on fully about critical thinking and not understanding the way things operate, and just kind of being on this autopilot of a diet. Just, hey, that's what they give you. This is what's available. This is what you eat. And even more so with the healthcare system. One of the big motivators for me was I was trying to lose weight. I went to talk to my doctor about getting support through Wegovy or Ozempic. They submitted my, prescription request, whatever, to the insurance company. Insurance company denied it twice. My PCP was like, "You gotta call them." So I called them. I even have a letter at home with this on it, but they told me on the call, "Listen, you need to develop diabetes, hypertension, or sleep apnea. Once you get one of those, call us back and we can help you."
Wow. Yeah.
Like, you're not sick enough, dude.
Yeah.
So it's like one of them things like, Chappelle had this one thing in one of his things, but he was like, anything ever happened to you that was so offensive, like you didn't even get mad, it was just shocking, like, that just happened.
Yeah.
And so like, it was one of those moments, like it was just like, what? Like I was just, I don't even use this, I was flabbergasted.
Flabbergasted, good word.
I was flabbergasted and angry at the same time, and being like, the system is set up to operate this way, right? Like,
well, I think you and I and other nonprofit leaders or anyone that's really in any level of social service, I think are sensitive to that too. Because it's
valid point.
You see the barriers that are created that's like, why can't we just cut through this? Like and that comes from the client experience too, of people being so frustrated.
That's so true.
And, frustrated that, we're getting 1,000 calls a day. I have 20 people that can answer the phones, we can't keep up with it.
Wow.
And it's
for fuel assistance?
Mostly for fuel assistance.
Wow.
Yeah. So we just can't keep up with the demand. And a lot of it is because there's just layers and layers of things you have to submit. It's can be very invasive.
Sure.
And like you see that from the frustration from the client experience of like what they have to go through to just get the benefit,
Right.
And we are both part of that, but also trying to change that too,
So coming into the new year, do you do resolutions? Are you like a resolutions person?
Well,
do you resolve to?
I have in the past. In my personal life, not as much. I would say I've moved away from that because I think it's kind of a flawed, false thing for me.
Sure.
Or at least that's been my experience, where I'm like, I just need to own up to some stuff that are my choices, But professionally, yes, yeah. I feel like I take a lot of ownership of like where I see where we need to really focus on more continuous improvement and process. And we've actually started to do a lot of work with some really great consultants around overhauling what we have historically called as our performance evaluation system,
yeah.
which in and of itself has a very stereotypical, you have like a fearful, punitive reaction even just to those words. So we're changing it to be our individual development plan, which I think was something that you also mentioned too.
Yeah, we're calling it the personal development plan.
Yeah.
The PDP.
That's more of a coaching support mindset. And our whole agency is actually we are in the process of engaging all staff across the agency. We haven't gotten to everybody yet. Of taking on the economic mobility mentoring empath model, the bridge to self-sufficiency, which is a client-centered coaching support model.
For sure. And
like informed supervision type of work where the client, decides what success looks like for them and you're kind of supporting that versus like a lot of, social service agencies, like here's the menu of things.
For sure.
So there's that is what we're trying to do more as like a ethos and philosophy to kind of undergird what we're also trying to do centered around our DE&I work. And really through our DE&I work, things that pop up for us are like more need for more communication, staff needing to feel more valued and included in decision-making and sharing information at all levels.
Right.
That cycle of communication of like sharing information is the first step.
No doubt.
But oftentimes it's the part that people feel like, oh, well, I told them,
Right.
And there's not like there's no conversation around like the implication of that and the agreement to it and the adoption and practice of it. So we've been working with consultants very specifically on the art of giving and receiving feedback as part of the IDP, individual development plan, new process and rollout as a mechanism for like, how do you create greater communication?
Yep.
Relationship building between employees and their managers,
For sure.
and just us as an agency. But to your question around resolution, if I had to think about that, it's really this year 2023 was a huge year of growth for us.
Excellent. Yeah,
we
moved over
into
here.
this new space.
Yep.
We actually we have 2 new sites for our Head Start program that we opened up in December. In Leicester and East Brookfield. So if you live in Leicester and East Brookfield and you have 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds that need Head Start, please contact us. And our resiliency center doubled in staff size, which is really incredible because that was almost like an incubation.
You increased your resiliency.
Yes, we did. Yes. And trying to integrate that into our business model of using the resiliency center as a internal and external referral strategy.
Yeah.
So a lot of growth. So this year is more like, how do we go deeper? Right.
I love that.
And, talking to the senior team about that and trying to engage staff at all levels, which we're in the process of doing that, is part of that is like, how do we build better relationships? And ultimately it's culture, right? So
Of course.
Like what is culture? It's probably different for different people across every department, every corner of the agency, but that's kind of our focus now. And that's where I feel very resolute in really trying to practice that and embed this very wholly in why we are doing it and how we're doing it. Not that I'm trying to make sure it's not this other thing on people's plates.
Yeah, I just want to weave it
but
in.
it's actually, it's the plate.
No doubt.
So
there was a lot, man, you shared there. And I was like, so thinking about the personal development plans, we talked about this before, specifically in like nonprofits, developing people, growing them to almost like they're gonna leave because there's
the career ladder is a little
career ladders.
Yeah.
They stunt, And so thinking about how you coach people up, like needing to have a continuous pipeline to bring new people in and constantly reinventing that. So I was thinking about that.
I think we have to admit and acknowledge that if people want to grow, like you and I had desires to be the heads of our respective organizations, that was a personal goal of mine. I wanted to be the leader of an organization. So I couldn't do that anywhere. There wasn't that ladder for me to, go be the CEO of the place where I was, doing whatever I was doing. So we have to be prepared and acknowledge and admit that people will leave, but hopefully they're leaving because
they got developed to a point.
Were able, they can take that next step to achieve their goal. Because in a lot of places, because the funnel is so short and the way funding is, and we've talked about this pay structure, it's kind of hard for us to compete sometimes. So we have to be like, I want to invest in you, knowing that you may take that investment elsewhere.
That's true. The one thing, we're talking about culture, feedback. That's a big thing for me as well. I don't think that's just nonprofits, but like in general, being able to receive feedback. One of the core strengths that we identified in our short existence is that for us, the core strength is that understanding that feedback is an opportunity for growth. And so we're in a very different but similar spot than you, as you've come in, been here, what, this is 4 years?
4.5.
4.5 years. So you've been turning, there was a culture before you got here, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so you've been working toward a culture that you want to implement and continue to do a great work in that area where we're growing ours from kind of scratch. Yeah. And so there's different roadmaps and road signs that we see. And so as we saw, it was like, oh yeah, if you're not able to take the feedback, then you're probably not a good fit for us, right? And so like weaving that in, so understanding that feedback is an opportunity for growth, not it's not punitive. And then also how you deliver it. Yeah. So there were two good books that really resonated with me on that. And I had some of my senior folks read. One was called Leadership and Self-Deception. And the other one was The Art of Giving and Receiving Feedback. Those two.
That's what I didn't mean to say it that way as a book, but yeah.
It is. Yeah. So I didn't know. Those were super helpful. Also Nonviolent Communication was a super helpful book in how to communicate.
Well, it's we can go all over the place with this. And I will preface and say that I am imperfect at building a culture, right? So like but at the same time, like sometimes I don't know what I don't know. If you don't tell me, and I happen to be the type of person, like if you have a problem or if you have an issue with me, just tell me.
Yeah, let's talk.
And I may react, but I rather just know.
I want to be in the conversation.
Be aware of it. I want to be in the conversation. And sometimes I hear I'll hear things like much later. Yeah. Well, it could be about a process. It could be about, or the way something rolled out or communicated or lack thereof communication. Is most of the time the challenge. And I just wish I knew, and I'm like, I feel, because I tend to be more, my inherent nature is to want to be the problem solver, but I'm learning that also like I need to solve with people, So
here's another good one, or a question that was in my head. And I wonder if other nonprofits struggle with this. We talked about this previously. The culture of that communal, relational feel that you want to cultivate, but also balancing that I've got to make hard decisions. Yeah. And so like this paradox exists of high expectations and cultivating a culture that you work in. Yeah. And so I was just curious, like how you're thinking through, because sometimes I try to be, I'm not always great at it, but inclusive of hearing my people, right? But it's like, okay, cool, you shared that, but it doesn't mean that we're going to go do that.
Yeah.
Awesome, but we're not doing that.
Yeah, that's definitely a theme that comes up. We just did our second year doing like a DEI questionnaire, and that's a theme that comes up of consistently around both the idea of better communication and also staff feeling heard. Is, I gave my manager a bunch of ideas and they didn't implement any of them. And that's interesting because I am trying to create a culture of where people feel like they have the power to share and give ideas. I think where that can fall short sometimes, it's that whether the answer is yes or no, it's yes and if it's no, maybe it's no because of these challenges, or it's no, not right now, but let's,
Yeah, I still got it in my...
and I think that's where because the communication just doesn't it's not circular, it doesn't come back. So it just feels like, oh, well, I offered a suggestion and nobody listened to me. And that is a palpable frustration. I can understand that too, from the person giving the idea, a feeling like, well, I tried and no one listens to me, and that's that can be sensitive.
There was this stupid phrase that is stuck in my head when you talk about communication. I've told my team this, but my first job, dude, Bob Stone, man, he was like, if you communicate in this way, Ron, you'll never have any problems. Mm-hmm. Tell them you're going to shoot the bear, and then tell them you shot the bear.
Just, yes. So
like, if
clear.
Yeah, just like, so cool. You share. Thank you for sharing. I will get back. Right. So even if I'm not implementing it, like I'll get back to you and let you know what we're doing with that.
Yes.
Like can alleviate.
I will say that.
And that's a people thing. Like,
I think humans, and this is, again, I'm going to say it, we are in the middle of doing this work. I would say we're in the early middle stages of doing this work here, right? So I'm not an expert, still learning, trying to get to the point of practice, right? But what I will say in the early learning, that when I say it out loud, and I can imagine people who have been leaders for many more years than me who might be listening to this being like, yeah, dummy, welcome aboard. But at the end of the day, it's the need for clarity, right? The need for clear communication. And one of our consultants, and actually another person that I've met with before, is like that candor is kind, right? And I think Brene Brown says that too, right? Is that just being candid constructively is kinder than what I think I'm learning here. And this relates to what I was talking about earlier with my growing up. Just make all the circles and connections, is that I know for me that I unintentionally, but I feel myself in the process avoiding the conflict.
Sure.
And like just going around rather than being like, I'm going to be really transparent, clear, and candid with you.
Yeah.
And we're learning about this model, this situational behavioral impact model, this SBI model as the actual format for providing feedback. And it forces you, and hopefully it will be a natural condition over time as we practice this, but it forces you to identify the period of time that something happened, confirm that the people in that conversation are on the same page as to the situation and the timing. Identify, define, describe the behavior, and then talk about the impact that it had on that situation. And it sounds really simple.
No.
But it's a really hard thing. We're in the middle of practicing. It takes time.
Yeah.
It's still awkward. You still want to kill with kindness, but that doesn't get you. It's too circular. It doesn't get, so we're trying to figure out like how are we more clear and candid with dignity, obviously. But one of the, I was talking to Marrio about this earlier. There's like a set of basic assumptions that we have been starting these meetings with our consultant, like everyone's a human, people deserve dignity because just they're breathing and alive.
Absolutely.
And which connects to your pedestrian biker issue. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But there's another assumption of this concept of I and me, of that, as I like internally, like I, am thinking about how I add value, that I have this expertise. I want to feel good about like what I'm doing, and I want to be supportive of whatever. And versus the me, which tends to be like the more dominant, like the reactionary person.
Sure.
That like that part of your id or ego, I don't know where that sits, but of like that wants to just defend and be protective.
Of course.
Because you don't want to get out of your comfort zone.
Sure.
That fear of that. So that's part of like being conflict avoidant, I think. But also what I find, I think is two things that ultimately to your question of like, how are you doing this and like the practice? I think the feedback part in this format and formula only gets us so far. I think we also have to make sure we're clearly defining expectations, clearly understanding the boundaries, and also clearly saying like, if not X, then Y is the consequence. And I think we're not, because of that kindness and that circumvention, there's not a lot of consequence sometimes.
Yep.
And so it just becomes this vicious cycle that then becomes the norm. And it's like, then people are frustrated about the process and like, how come so-and-so gets to do it this way? And there's no consequence. And that sounds negative,
It doesn't. Yeah. I mean, we're on the other side of that right now, realizing as we've grown, like, especially those things we were just talking about, like specifically how do we design, like who gets advanced and who doesn't?
Yeah.
Right? Like we haven't had that come up yet. It's just kind of been like, oh, we need you to fill this role. So now you're going to be the director of X, whatever. And we make up a title. And so now we've just started working with a consultant to help us formalize those systems. And so there's a whole separate person who's helping us pull those together, so that what I found for me is it's the writing and putting those in there actually are what holds me in. It makes me defer to, well, this is what this says and this is what we're going to do versus right. So
shoot the bear.
Yeah. Well, it's trying to move it away from being as subjective to more objective, right? Like I was talking with a friend of mine who was taking in a young man who was part of DCF, and he was going to stay with him for a little bit. And I was like, hey, listen, I've done that before. Let me just holler at you real quick. And so this will connect in a second. And so he was like, all right, cool. And so I was like, one of the things I learned, man, is that I would be very clear and concise and explicit with my expectations. And I would even potentially at this point go as far as us both signing off on something. Mm-hmm. And honestly, that's more for me than for the young brother, because I could see myself acquiescing on certain things and being like, no, don't worry. But if I have it in writing and said, this is what we were going to do, not that I'll feel great. Like, let's say it didn't work out and whatever, had to go back through the system. I will deal with that, but this is what we agreed to. Yeah. So I'm defaulting to what we agreed to.
Yeah, I think holding that line, because there is subjectivity person to person, right? So as someone that, if you're one of my direct reports, and like I have 5 or 6 direct reports, right? And each person is very different.
Sure.
And have different stuff going on in their lives, right? No doubt. So one day this person, I have a staff person who will tell me like, I am not having my best day today. Like I got some stuff going on. I'm like, they'll be like, I can bring like 75% today. Like, okay, let me know where the other 25, who can I provide the other 25%? Or, and Brene Brown actually talks about that in the concept of marriage too, of like when you're with your partner, like coming home from work, I'm like, I'm at 20% today. And your partner's like, I'm good. I can pick up the other 80%. But like what happens if you're both at 20%? Like you're just like, all right.
You're 60% not done.
We're both at 20% today.
That's when the laundry piles up. That's when dishes aren't washed.
But that's even in the agreement of like, let's just let that lie for a minute, Sure. So every staff person that I have, and this is probably true everywhere, but people have, and I think this is also more true post-COVID in terms of where work and personal lives have been a little bit more intertwined. Like people work at home. So like their work is at home. Oh
yeah, that's a thing.
And generationally, I think there's a little bit more, I think our younger generation is very acutely keen on like wanting to do good, right? Do by good. But that also comes with some expectation that, at least here in my observations, is like, I need my employer to do more for me as a result of that. And so it is this delicate, and I struggle with this as the CEO here of like understanding and centering equity, because if I'm trying to meet somebody where they are, that's going to look different for person A than it does for person B, because I'm meeting them where they are and whatever percentage they're at.
It's valid. And
so to person C, they're like, well, why is A and B getting, like, what's going on there? Right. So that I'm noodling that too. But there is this thing also where this graying between life and work. And I feel like you and I are among the last generation where like in our age group anyway, of like work was like, you go to work, don't talk about your stuff. Like you go to work, do your job. Valid. Don't bring stuff. And now it's it's grayed. I think COVID perpetuated that and grew that a little bit. But I'm also with this culture work and doing this feedback stuff, I'm sensitive to triggering people's traumas too. Sure. Because of that me part of them, their me reacts to a situation regardless of its personal or work because of whatever happened in their lives, And like, where's that line? I'm like, I'm as an employer, I don't want to, nor should I, nor really cross that line, But yet we need to figure out how to be more relational with each other and understand like what's going on, where the personal life and work mixes. It's a challenging conundrum that I think about constantly, that I don't think I'm ever going to perfectly figure it out, but I'm very sensitive to it.
I'm sensitive to it as well in my thought process, even as we're designing our onboarding materials, working with this consultant, is asking our interview questions in our onboarding, again, in 2 different spots where you've got 9 employees, you have
the other day, I just learned our FTE number is 140.
140.
Yeah.
Right. So
I was like, what? We're at 140?
So we're in 2 different sizes and 2 different lengths. But for me, it's cool. I need certain skill. I need a skill set, but I'm realizing that I'm looking for a certain type of person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There are characteristics, there are components, there are character qualities, there are a way of being about certain people that will thrive in the environment that we're creating.
Yeah.
And for others, it won't work. And so we've let people go. Like, they've had the skill set and they brought talent to the table, but when it came to engaging in that way, I can't. And not even to the personal piece, but like the ability to receive feedback and then give it constructively. One of our core values is keep it 100. And what we get at in that is just like you were saying, man, like, I'd rather let's have the conversation instead of just be out here with this fake, like, everything cool, but you're really not.
But you're miserable.
Yeah. And I mean, just recently for us, this came up, and I was really, it was probably one of the proudest moments that I had within the org from a culture standpoint, in which there was an issue that was kind of bubbling beneath the surface. And as the leader, sometimes you're unaware of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everything is cool. You think, you're doing your thing.
Walking to work some days, I'm like, we are killing it.
Right,
and
right,
then I'm like,
right.
Today I walked in, I was listening to Dua Lipa. I was like, this is going to be a great day. And then some stuff happened, and I was like, meow.
They'd be like, oh, I didn't know. Right? So, like, at one of our staff meetings, whatever was going on. And there had been some folks that were having a conversation on the side about this issue. And then one of the other people who had kind of got pulled into it was like, look, I got to bring this to the table with everyone, because if one of our values is keep it 100, let's just have it. And our staff meeting ended up going, I wouldn't say left, but we didn't stay on the agenda, and we had this robust 2.5 hour conversation around that issue. But it was like, we needed to have, we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
It's not gonna get any better by you going over here and then going over there and just kind of holding this. Like, let's bring it and talk through it. And the folks that it was around were in the room. And one of the things I appreciate about the leadership at our team is that and I debriefed with them after my direct reports, they were able to sit in the space and say, okay, cool, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And take the feedback. And then later on, they shared how, it affected them, those kind of things. But it was like, it was definitely dicey in the middle of it. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to end.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's part of the scary thing for me, or I wouldn't say scary. Scary.
Because you feel a sense of like, do you feel responsible for it? If it goes badly or well?
This was a direct result of one of the decisions I made as a leader, as a direction we were going to go. Mm-hmm. And so that came through. But what I say scary is, like, I don't know how this is going to end. Like, I don't know the outcome of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we're gonna go into the conversation.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the resolution is going to be.
Were you prepared for different possible outcomes, like, mentally?
So
I'm going through that in my head now with some stuff, and I'm just like, I think I need to prepare myself for this potential outcome.
I'm never. So yes, I play all those outcomes in my head. One of the things that I learned from a good friend of mine was this strategy that samurai use. It's called dying before battle. And so what samurai would do is they would envision the way they were going to die in a battle, and they would write it out explicitly how it would happen. Because once they did that, they were able to fight valiantly, because I've already died. Like, it's the worst thing that can happen. I've already experienced it. And so I go there, like, all right, what is the worst possible outcome of this? And if that's what, all right. So if that happens, what will I need to do? And so I go immediately there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that does, and this is the consistency of like in the conversation that we're having with the consultant, and just as I talk to other people, or even my own wife, of like, Adrienne is a very like, she's like, it's this way or that way. Like she's very one or the other, which is very helpful sometimes, because she's like, I don't see it that way. You know? She's like, you're too nice. But I like it is just clearer every day to me. It's like, it is about being clear, setting expectations, setting boundaries, and, you know, just kind of being strict about that.
Oh yeah.
You know, in your own discipline and practice. Because that is the communication that's needed, you know. And there's everything I have talked, even what you just described in the samurai analogy, it's like this clear cut. I have set this expectation, and this is the boundary that is being set too. And here, this is the A to B point, and that's I think I just need to get more disciplined and practice that.
I think I'm a nerd when it comes to words and language. So like, you may not have intended it that way, but I try not to be nice. I want to be kind, but I'm not interested in being nice.
Yeah. I don't have, I understand. And I don't have, I don't care. I don't put a lot of weight in whether somebody likes me or not.
Yeah.
I
do.
I'm sure as a human being, I'm sure it's in there somewhere for
That's
me.
my
of
trauma.
Like, I mean, I'm definitely a people pleaser. There's no doubt about it. But for me, I've really gone deep on this my own self of like, where is that coming from for me? And it's not that I want someone to like me. It's just like, I feel like I'm just doing good, you know?
No doubt.
And the 5 more minutes and we have been like...
My man says good.
But it's more the thing when I get like a little tweak of something of like, irked, it's like, because I don't feel respected.
Sure.
And I'm sure there's a very, Brene Brown has done so much in sociology about like, ultimately like what goes down to fear and like, I can't,
she's great.
I got to find some reading from her as well, because I'm sure ultimately it's about likability, but, so maybe I'm a little bit of denial about that or naive, but I hear what you're saying of like, you're not looking to be nice. And I think that's a problem. It's like, I'm trying to be nice to you so your feeling isn't hurt.
I can't control your feelings.
I'm circumventing like the real thing, but I think I'm saying it the way I want it, so you feel good about it. But at the end of the day, it's like, we're not on the same page, you know?
No, and for me, it does. Part of that is a difficult thing for me to do. Because, you know, I know for a fact, you know, after going through therapy, like that's an issue of, you know, abandonment for me is something that I've gone through quite a bit in my life. And so this core belief that sits in there around you're not wanted and you're not enough. But the cool thing is this, right? Like for me, I'm privileged and thankful that I'm aware of that thought so that I can own the thought and not let the thought own me.
Yeah.
Because then I can choose. Like I know when it's happening. Yeah. Right? Like, oh, this is it doesn't always feel great, but I can choose to say, oh, that's what's going on.
Yeah.
And separate myself from that.
Yeah.
And make that decision of like, this is what it is.
I think that's very self-aware. Yeah.
And being able, and that's a lot of the work, right? Like, so for instance, when we talk about the culture, and I love to see this happen for us as we continue to grow, and what you're talking about, even what you're developing here, I don't think it's, and why we're looking for a certain type of person, I don't think it's something you can turn on and off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it is you come to work and I'm going to be this person 9 to 5.
Well, this is whole like bring your authentic self to work.
This is what I'm saying, right? Yeah. But then here, yes, bring your authentic self to work, but people don't realize most of their lives they're inauthentic in everything they do. Even in their relationships, they don't tell their significant other or spouse when they're really upset because they want to be nice.
Oh, I do now.
I don't want to disrupt. No, I hear you.
No, I know.
You know what I'm saying? But authentically, how you really feel and where these things are, like a lot of the times we're operating in inauthenticity. And so I'm bringing my authentic, inauthentic self to this place.
It's funny. So you are actually a person that, because our communication has been challenging in the past. Like it's well documented.
Good now.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That's exactly my point. Is we agreed not to text about work things because of tone, but I think it was a starting point for us. Cause I'm pretty candid with you,
no doubt.
And sometimes it's like jokey, but it's real. And so I find that as I'm like figuring this process out and being a participant in it, but also trying to role model too, is that I am practicing it better with some people than I am with others.
Yeah.
And for me, I have to be like, well, why is that the case? Why isn't it consistent? Why am I a little more concerned about like making that person feel okay better than this other person?
You ever get exhausted doing that?
I'm exhausted right now.
Because doing all that emotional and like that work is God. I got to try and get this like practical work done.
Yes.
Like, I'm sitting here thinking about.
Well, yeah.
Well, when I left that meeting, how was she feeling? And did I?
That is my week.
I'm trying to do the budget, and I'm like, but when I said that, did she?
That's
think
why I'm
that
tired
way?
on Fridays. But that is a thing and I know we have to wrap up, but that is a thing that is coming up as part of doing this work. Is we also have work to do.
Right.
And so
that's the paradox that we're talking about.
And people are like, my team is like, I support this idea. I'm glad we're doing this, but I have so much stuff to do. And so like, I'm trying to talk about it. I was like, this is why we're doing it. And we're changing how we're doing it. I'm trying not to add more because that is like, I do have to do the budget, and I have the luxury in my role as having more time to think about this stuff because that's my job. Others have a much more technical transactional job that doesn't allow them to think as much. And it can feel a little bit like a criticism sometimes, but this is the idea is like, I need to be focusing on the process and why something isn't working, and tell me that, and like how people relate so we can improve ultimately the client experience here, and change the business model.
It's fascinating because I've started a side hustle that I'm hoping to grow into a business of my own on the side. And the premise of the business, though, operates from the other side of that spectrum.
Yeah.
It's recruiting, and it's just like, turn off what people think about you because this is what you need to do. And
is this where people thought your Facebook was hacked?
They did. Okay. Yeah, they thought it was hacked. No, it's not hacked, man. Like we're looking for the right people, but it's like it's so interesting. Like I was talking with my trainer, coach, whatever you call him. And I was explaining to him, like, there's this mental shift when I'm doing this business versus my nonprofit work. Like there's a whole different way of thinking and being in this atmosphere versus that atmosphere. Yeah. Because it's like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we got to do.
But yeah, it's also where your comfort zone, when are you in your comfort zone versus not? Yeah.
So it's an opportunity to grow. So that's my New Year resolution this year is to grow that. Plus I need additional income. Things are well, but like a dollar's not a dollar no more.
Well, inflation, everything's expensive. You got kids.
2 boys. Yeah.
They probably eat a lot.
My man eats more than
I saw them eat steak. So.
I understand. I made a whole bowl of guac. They ate that. And then I was like, well, we got spaghetti for dinner though. So then they ate the spaghetti.
Love spaghetti.
And then dude was like, you gonna make any more guac? Was like, bro, like.
Yeah, they're growing. They need all the things. Yeah. So, all right, we got to wrap it up. This has been Therapy 101 with Ron.
Oh, check this out. Check this out. So you were saying how you brought papaya in recently.
Oh, yesterday. Yeah, because we didn't have heat in the house. So I had to get my laptop.
Yeah. So one of my friends, him and his wife were kind of talking about their puppy. And he was like, listen, they couldn't find it. So she asked, have you seen the dog bowl? And the husband said, I didn't know he could.
There's just a very specific intonation you have when you're setting us up for a joke. I love it.
Did you see the dog bowl? I didn't know he could.
I saw a 10 ants joke, which we've already done in like episode 4.
We did.
But it was, what do you call 5 ants that move into an apartment and then 5 other ants that move into an apartment? 10 ants. Yeah.
That's right.
But we've been there with the 10 ants.
Was it affordable housing though?
Not here. Uh-oh. Gotta go.
Thank you for joining
tune in
us.
Next guest, Natanya Craig Oquendo from Boston Women's Fund, who is a fiery, awesome, super smart, super cool, very exciting. Can't wait to have her on.
Tune in. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment. Put this on all your feeds, and we'll catch you next time on a Ripple Effect. Couldn't even talk. Ripple Effect.
You're listening to The Ripple Effect, a nonprofit imperative with Ron Waddell and Marybeth Campbell. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you on the next one.